So I think we're going to go ahead and jump right in and get started. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending Premeds STAR's second webinar as part of the Application Bootcamp series. Tonight's webinar is going to focus on the AMCAS application portal. And as I was saying earlier, you should be able to apply some of the hints and tips that we're going to be using towards the other applications. But of course, if you need help or assistance, please feel free to reach out. So my name is Omo Megan. I am the National Pre-Medical Board Member for the Student National Medical Association. And what that means is that I focus my time and efforts on helping to provide resources and tools to pre-medical students across the country. And so I've had the great opportunity to partner with Premeds STAR to be able to provide you all with these helpful webinars and resources over the course of this application cycle. So definitely be on the lookout. We have more webinars coming soon, and we definitely want to be a resource to you all. So we're going to go ahead, jump right in and get started. So I know this may be a surprise. We were supposed to have Erica Odukoya actually leading this presentation, but I'll be leading it in her absence. But don't worry, you all should see her next week. So I know some of you all were excited to see her and not me. So I'll try my best to live up to her standards. So basically this evening, we're going to go over what AMCAS is, walk through the different sections of the AMCAS application, which includes the personal information that you have to enter, your coursework, works and activities section, letters of evaluation or your letters of rec, LORs, adding medical schools, submitting your essays, and making sure your standardized test scores are inputted. We'll go over some important dates and deadlines. And then, of course, I'll be checking the chat box. So if you have questions, if you can save it to the end, cool. If you pop them in during, I'll try my best to answer it. But if not, just circle and throw them back at the end. Cool little feature that Erica added to the presentation is a little mini-me. So if you look that way, you can find different tips and suggestions throughout the presentation, and we'll also make sure that this PowerPoint goes out. So my little mini-me or Bitmoji will have cool tips and advice along the way. So we'll go ahead and get started. So what is AMCAS? So AMCAS stands for the American Medical College Application Service, and it is the AAMC centralized medical school application portal. So basically, if you want to apply to any allopathic medical school in the United States, you would use AMCAS. Specifically, if you want to apply to an MD program in the United States, you would use AMCAS. And also Baylor University, although it's in the state of Texas, is also included in the AMCAS portal. So if you're interested in applying to Baylor, make sure you submit an AMCAS application. Now the TEMDAS is the Texas Medical and Dental Application Service. And as I was saying earlier, this is a specific portal that schools located in the state of Texas use. So make sure you visit their website, follow the instructions so that you're up to date with their deadlines, dates, and requirements. And then there's AMCAS, so that stands for the American Association of Colleges of Osteopathic Medicine. So if you are interested in applying to a DO school or osteopathic medical education program, then AMCAS is the portal for you. And again, today we'll be focusing on the AMCAS, so definitely let us know if you have any questions around TEMDAS or AMCAS. I'll try to get those questions answered or shoot you in the right direction and where you can find those answers. Okay, so we're going to jump right in. So if you've already started your application, then you are very familiar with the AAMC's website, right? And if you're not, it's not that difficult. You can go to Google and literally search AAMC. You will go to the students section. They, recently had a redesign of the website, so there's a lot of tabs and buttons to try and navigate you to where you need to be. You would go to the Applying to Medical School tab, and you would select Applying to Medical School with AMCAS. So once you've navigated to that section of the website, you would have to sign in on the 2018 AMCAS sign in button, and then you would create a username and password. If you've already taken your MCAT, then the same username and password would be what you would use to sign in to the portal. So one quick tidbit that I found to be extremely useful, be sure to store your username and password for everything throughout this application process. Not only are you going to have to keep track of your AAMC username and password, but as you complete secondaries, apply for scholarships, you will have to create a username and password for every unique school. So it's very useful if you maybe create an Excel sheet in a Google Doc or so that you can keep track of all the passwords, usernames, and even the link to get to those specific websites. So once you've successfully logged in, you should orient yourself to your new home. Over the course of the application process, this is where you're going to be going to input all the information that you need to submit to have your application complete. And so as I mentioned, the different sections are outlined there for you right on the home page. You can always go and save the parts, the sections that you work on. And what's really cool is as you go step by step, it'll tell you if the section is complete or incomplete. So just make sure that you are double checking and triple checking each section as you complete it. Also, be sure to keep track of your double AMC ID number. You're going to be using that definitely to log into secondaries as they come. So by the time you're done, you'll probably have that number memorized. So also, quick check, right? So when you log into the double AMC website, you definitely want to make sure that button says 2018 AMCAS sign in. I have had friends, cough, cough, who have found themselves, really geeked, really excited to start their application, and they started inputting information and come to find out they were working on last year's application. So if you are applying for this cycle, you want to make sure it says 2018. So of course, that means you'll be entering into medical school in the year 2018. So it should say 2018 application. So always make sure that you're paying attention to that, especially when you sign in. So again, the sections are listed for you. You have your works and activities and essays, letters of evaluation, the identifying information, which is like your demographic information, schools you've attended, coursework, the medical schools that you'll select, and your MCAT scores, which are oftentimes auto-populated for you. So just in case if you have trouble sometimes skipping from one section to the next, sometimes you may have to input a little information in order to move to the next window. But just keep track of each of the sections as you go through. And again, always double check and triple check. So we're going to go ahead and start walking through the sections now. So the first section is your identifying information. So simple, the basics: first name, middle name, last name. Definitely use your legal information. So if you have any nicknames or if you shorten your name, make sure that you put your full name and then so that they're able to match your application with your records, right? So when your transcripts come in, when your letters of evaluation comes in, when your MCAT scores come in, and it won't cause any delay in processing. And then it also, allows you the space to enter in if you have any preferred names, nicknames, or if you've gone by any alternate names in the past. I know for me, I have a long name, so in the past I shortened it. So I would list like my full name, and then as an alternate name, I listed like the shortened version of my name, just so there wasn't any mix-up. So feel free to make sure you enter in that section correctly. The next section is schools attended. So in this section, it's going to ask for all the high schools you may have attended, colleges. This also includes community colleges, and also any master's programs. So some of you may have gotten your bachelor's and then proceeded on to get a master's degree. So every school that you've attended, you're going to end up inputting into the AMCAS application. And so they're going to ask for the basic information of location, and then also graduation year. So I know one weird question that came up for me. I took community college classes while in high school, so it was weird entering in community college courses in this section. So for your graduation year, you can just put your high school graduation if you took community college classes while in high school, and that will fulfill that section. So there's also a section called previous matriculation. So a lot of folks come from a lot of different backgrounds. So if you have previously attended a medical school, or if you were in a medical education program at any time in the past, be sure to also include the information for that school in the school's attended section. And then also institutional action. So I know this can be a really scary section for folks, and honestly, the best advice is that honesty is the best policy. Sometimes situations have occurred during your academic journey or your time during your undergraduate experience, and maybe that event was listed on your transcript and maybe it wasn't. Just to be on the safe side, it's recommended that you list it, right? Just so that you don't have any issues, because they do run a background check. Schools individually run background checks on your application. And if you have any questions or concerns, or if you're confused, if you should put something down, if you have a pre-health advisor or a counselor on your campus, definitely reach out to them, speak to them, and get their feedback. And if you're truly confused, then honesty is the best policy. And I would just include it, and you'll always have the opportunity to explain if asked. Okay, and so biographic information, it's going to ask you a lot of questions. So just, dig in deep for the long haul. But of course, it'll ask for your preferred address and permanent address. I know for me, I used my mom's address as my permanent address because it's just easy for me to make sure that all my mail is centralized there, and that the current address that I was using, I used a preferred address. However, if you know that you're going to be in your place of residence for the next year or so, then feel free to put it as your permanent address. So you just use your own discretion, whatever you think is the best way for information to be sent to you, for it to be received. You can input it there. They're also going to ask questions about your citizenship status, legal residence, how you self-identify, languages that you speak, questions about your childhood, and also your disadvantaged status. And in that section, you're able to write a short essay describing that, and we could talk about that a little bit more later. If you have any dependents, it asks a question about parents, siblings, military service, military discharge, if that applies to you, if you have any felony convictions or misdemeanor convictions. So yes, they ask a lot of questions about your business. So after you've completed that section, it's going to ask you about your coursework. So I believe this is probably one of the most meticulous sections, and it's one of the sections that you have to be really attentive to the details. So the best way to go about filling out this section is I personally ordered official transcripts that were sent directly to me so that I could make sure that my coursework was being entered into AMCAS exactly as how it appears on my transcript. Again, if AMCAS gets it and they notice any discrepancies, it's going to delay the processing of your application, and you want to avoid that at all costs. Also, it's great to order your official transcript so that you yourself have a copy, because if there is any, missing grades or, issues or mistakes on your transcript, then you can definitely follow up with your school immediately to try and get that rectified, so that you have the proper information reflected in your application. One important tip, I know it kind of drove me a little bit crazy, was how to enter your high school courses that you got college credit for. So that would be AP coursework and I believe IB coursework, depending on the type of high school you went to. So it can be a little tricky, but just remember that you should enter your AP credit in your first semester of college. So if you started, college like Erica did, fall of 2007, then you would enter in all the AP courses there. And that's the way you should input any of those high school courses with college credit. Now remember, you need to enter every school that you've ever attended, right? Every course and every grade post high school. So once you start working on that coursework summary section, all the institutions that you attended are going to appear. So just make sure that you are including all these courses, that you are documenting the accurate grade for them. And again, make sure you order your own copy of your official transcript just so that you can be double checking, triple checking, and quadruple checking. I'm going to look down. So do you have to report AP classes if you didn't transfer the credits? That's a good question. Honestly, I would report it. That was the advice that I was given, just so they have record and see that you took that class. But again, you can also double check with a pre-health advisor. But I recommend that you should put the AP class if you took it. Okay, so the next section is the works and activities section. I think second to coursework, this takes a lot of time to do. So think of your work and activity section as basically your resume, right, or your CV that you want medical schools to see the work that you've done, the accomplishments that you had, and also some of those experiences that you've been involved with that have really had a huge impact on you and why you want to become a physician. So you have the option to categorize these different works and activities from paid medical work to community service, volunteer. You can also use this section to highlight any awards that you may have gotten, any research that you may have done. And so my recommendation for this section is to definitely diversify the types of categories that you have. You don't want majority of your works and activities to just be one type. You want to come off as well-rounded and be able to show a wide range of what you've accomplished in these past couple of years that you've been on that pre-med grind. And so it's definitely important to fully complete this section. So it's going to ask not only for the type of experience that you participated in, but it's also going to ask for the time frame and the total hours. So I know the total hours can be a little bit tricky, especially if this may have been an activity that you did, let's say, your freshman year of college or a really long time ago. So it's best to try and categorize it, I would say, by week. So if you know, okay, I did a summer program for 8 weeks and it was part-time, so that's 20 hours a week. So you can kind of gauge the amount of hours that you did week by week. If it's an ongoing time commitment, so maybe you were part of your MAPS chapter, right, all 4 years of undergrad, then you would definitely have a higher total hour count. So again, I would just try to maybe break it down week by week or month by month, and so you can use the months of the academic year. So if you know, okay, I dedicated about 10 hours a month to working with my MAPS chapter, then you can, kind of count up those total hours that way, month by month during each academic year. How accurate do these hours have to be? Like I said, they understand some of these experiences may have been years ago, or some of these experiences may, cover a large range of time. Like maybe you've been involved in something for like 7 or 8 years. So just as accurate as possible, and also as reasonable as possible. So don't say, you volunteer for 3,000 hours over a summer. Like that doesn't seem feasible. So just try to, calculate it and gauge it as accurately as you can. shadowing into one entry in this section. Yes, so if you have shadowed a physician or a healthcare professional, that is definitely where you would want to highlight that experience in the works and activities. Because when you think about it, the AMCAS application, you're going to have your personal statement essays where you could talk about more of you as an individual, your passion and your drive and your motivation to pursue a medical career. And so the works and activities section is the opportunity to highlight the things that you have done, accomplished, or have had a great impact on you. So definitely any activity that falls under that, you would definitely want to group. And you have a lot, it's maybe like 12 category types. Even, you know, the arts, I know a friend who did dance for years, and so that was really important to her. And so she put it, you can even put things like maybe you traveled abroad, if you've done any missionary trips. Another thing to highlight with the works and activities section is it doesn't have to be medical or health related. Again, if it's had a huge impact to you and who you are and has shaped who you become as a person, you should definitely highlight it. So again, the works and activities section is basically like your resume and CV where you can talk more about you. Awards you have gotten in college, is that important? Yes, it definitely is important, especially if it's a big deal. So if you made like maybe the principal's list or dean's list, or you got like a prestigious award from your department or from your college, you can definitely also use this works and activities section to put that award. And in terms of total hours, you don't have to put a like substantial amount of hours there. You can literally put like maybe like 3 hours. So that's like the hour you maybe were awarded the award or something like that. So some activities you may put doesn't necessarily have a total hour count, similar to like, you know, getting an award or something of that nature. So you just have to maneuver it the best way you see fit. Yeah, so maybe you may have had a activity or experience where it consisted of working with a lot of different people. So maybe you've shadowed numerous physicians. So one tip that I got is that you should lump those experience under one activity. So if you want to use shadowing as one, you can write that maybe the most recent person that you've shadowed, you can put their information as the contact information. And when you do the description section, so for every work and activity that you enter, you have to write a short description. You can input that you shadowed various physicians in various fields. And so you can really capitalize on that description box to kind of elaborate more on the experience. So yeah, if you've had any research assistant positions, if you volunteered, if you had any job experience, these are all different works and activities you can put in that section, and you would just categorize it. Okay, so in the interest of time, I'm gonna keep it moving, but don't worry, I'll definitely have a section of time for questions. So letters of evaluation or letters of rep. So it is mid-May, right, with the AMCAS application portal. So you have about 2 weeks before it goes live, and you can start submitting June 1st. So if you have already sent request letters to write to people who know you well and can speak to who you are and your experiences, great. Now's the time to definitely be sending them a reminder, knock, 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 hey, it's me, where's my letter at, in the most respectful and non-annoying way as possible. And if you haven't, you know, reached out to any letter writers, you definitely want to do that like yesterday, today, this evening after this webinar, just so that they can have enough time to write you a quality letter, and so you can get that in. Honestly, you do have a bit more time to get letters in because schools won't see letters of recommendation until they start reviewing your secondary app. So you do have a bit more cushion in time, but definitely request those letters sooner rather than later. And if you already have, send out those reminders, because best believe there's probably 20 other students barking up their tree. So you definitely want to make sure that they're spending time on yours. So when you get to the letters of evaluation section in the AMCAS application, there's actually a link to a really cool tutorial video that's actually really helpful. So it walks you through the process of uploading the letters into the letter writing service. So make sure you check that out so you have a clear idea of what you're doing. Although there are other, okay, cool, somebody watched that today, awesome. And there's also other letter delivery services that you can use. I personally use like Interfolio. Some schools may have their own letter writing service, letter delivery service for you. So just make sure that you research what resources and opportunities are out there for you to make work best for you. So when you want to add a letter of recommendation, there are different types of letters depending on maybe school that you have gone to, or maybe if you completed or in the process of completing a post-bac program. So basically 3 different types. You can have a committee letter. So if your school has a pre-health committee on campus or a pre-health advisor who basically represents your institution's letter of evaluation. And so what they will do is compile all your letters for you. So they probably have a process where they have your letter writers send the letters directly to them, or they make sure that you forward it to them. And they compile all your letters into one committee letter. The other letter type is a letter packet. And that is where maybe your school just helps you compile all your letters together. So if I go back, a committee letter usually has a letter that summarizes all your letters of rec for you. And so a letter packet means your institution compiles all your letters for you. So there's a difference between a committee letter and a letter packet, just to be clear. And then there's also an individual letter. So let's say you have a letter from a research advisor that you may have worked with, a physician that you may have shadowed, or maybe it's a boss that you have worked with, someone who oversaw a community service project. The list goes on and on and on. So of course, a lot of students or applicants have individual letters that they may submit. And sometimes people will do a hodgepodge. So they may submit a committee letter as well as individual letters, or a letter packet in addition to individual letters. Okay, awesome. So does a letter packet count as 3 or 1? So that's a great question, and I think I answer it in the next slide, but I don't. So it's probably in a future slide. But when you have a letter packet or a committee letter, it actually counts as 1 letter. So more bang for your buck. So that is plus, one of the pluses. But of course, sometimes, your institution may not have a pre-health committee or, letter packet services. Unfortunately, I went to a large undergrad institution, and so Berkeley, ironically, doesn't have any of that. So I went the individual letter route, but it's all the same. So if your school does have that service, definitely take advantage of it. And if not, you are perfectly okay. So what you're going to want to do when you enter into an AMCAS and you're looking at your letters of evaluation is that it's going to ask you if that letter writer is associated with one of the institutions that you've listed. And so you would do that and make sure that it's matched correctly. And then it's going to ask you a whole bunch of information about each specific letter writer. And so what's really important is that you title your letter. And so the letter title is going to show up in your AMCAS application. And this is really important that you make sure that your letter title is clear, because when you get to the section where you select your schools, you're going to have the option to send different letters to different schools. Different schools are going to have different requirements. Some schools are going to say, we only want 2 letters of rec. Some schools can say, hey, send us whatever you have. Some schools will say, oh, we only want 3, we only want 5. So you may end up picking and choosing. So it's important that you name, label, identify your letter as easily as possible so you can do a quick, fast job of matching the letters that you want with the institution that you want it to go to. And so again, you'll just put your letter writer's contact information, and then AMCAS is going to save everything. if you already put your recommender in without a title, it's okay. Yeah, that's fine. And you definitely have all the time in the world to go back in and make edits if you need to. So where it says letter title, it's literally asking you to basically like name that document. So there, it's not, you know, it's not a good or bad thing if you name it. But it does help you keep organized. So definitely name it so you can keep track of which letter. Oh, okay. So Veronica, that you do bring up a good point. Once you have added a recommender onto the AMCAS, it's really important that you add people who you know are going to write you a letter, because I believe AMCAS actually doesn't let you take it off after the fact. So if you didn't put a letter title, it's okay. But if that person sends you a letter and you're able to submit it, then you're fine as long as they're in there. Okay, yeah, so you don't have to worry about a title. Okay, perfect. Great. Okay, so yeah, so that's the letters of evaluation section. Make sure that you are inputting people or letter writers who you know for a fact are going to write you a letter, because this is actually one of the sections where once you put it on there, AMCAS isn't going to let you take it off, and it may look kind of weird if you submit an application and schools don't get that letter. So make sure you do that. The letter title is just for naming purposes. And again, you do have some time, right, to add in letter writers and things of that nature, because schools won't view those letters till you submit secondaries. Can the letter of rec be from different people? Yes, you can collect letters of recommendation from a variety of different people, mentors, people you've done research with, people you volunteered with, people who know you well except your mom, right? So you can't put, you know, your best friends, homies, aunties, cousins, I mean, unless you've worked with them in a professional or academic setting. But it should be people who have worked with you and can speak to your characteristics. So your diligence, your attention to detail, your problem-solving abilities, your heart, your compassion, all those characteristics that you think are going to make you a really great physician and makes you a great candidate for medical school. One tip or advice I would say is, if you are still requesting letters of recommendation from writers, what you can also do is maybe pinpoint some of those characteristics that you may want people to highlight about you. Maybe as a researcher that you worked with a couple years ago and you just want to jog their memory and remind them of how amazing you are. So don't be afraid to toot your own horn. And it definitely helps them so that they have, you know, a guiding point in writing a great letter for you. Would there be an option where only the letter recommender submits a letter on their own, or do they have to send it to us and we upload it ourselves? So with AMCAS, you're going to have your letter writers submit the letter on their own. They are not going to give you an option to upload your letter writer's letter, because they don't want people being fraudulent. So what that means, as I had mentioned earlier, you can use a variety of different services. So your school may have letter writing services. They may put a packet together for you. I had used Interfolio, which costs, I think it's like $20 a year, where Interfolio will send your letter writers a link. Your letter writers then upload their letter to that link, and Interfolio will send your letters to your letter writers directly. Also, you can direct your letter writers to the AAMC website directly. They can create an account and they would upload their letter for you themselves. That's why part of adding your letters of evaluation portion, they're going to give you a cover sheet for each letter writer, so that if they are uploading a letter for you, they're going to have your AMCAS ID and a specific ID number, so that AMCAS can match your application with the letter that they write for you. So again, that's another reason why it's important to remind your letter writers to get your letters in, so that they can, you know, so Interfolio can collect it, so that your school can collect it, or so that they, you know, take the time to upload it onto AMCAS directly themselves. Some letter writers may already have an account, but some may have to go through that extra step of creating one. So you just want to give them the time to do that without, again, like I said, being annoying or coming off as a bugaboo. Okay, no problem. So moving along, so medical school. So again, I mentioned that once you have uploaded your coursework, you submitted everything about yourself, your bio, where you're from, basically everything except your blood type at this point. Your letter of evaluation. Now you're going to get to the fun part of selecting your school. So what's helpful or stressful is that AMCAS will keep a running total of the costs associated with adding each school. So this is going to be important, especially for all of you who are going to be working on a budget, right? That may be dictating how many schools that you apply to. I hope that you all have applied to the fee assistance program. If you haven't, we'll talk about it at the end of the slide. If you qualify for the fee assistance program when you took your MCAT, you also qualify to have the application fees for a number of schools waived during in completing your AMCAS application. So just definitely make sure to double check and make sure that if you're eligible for that, you're taking advantage of it. So basically, when you get to selecting your schools, you are able to use a drop-down menu, and you can literally go state by state in selecting the amount of schools that you want to apply to. And so for me, that was kind of the easiest way to go about it. And so definitely come up with your list and come up with your budget. There are a number of resources out there. I tend to tell folks to stay away from SDN because it can be really traumatic and get you really stressed out, but definitely utilize MSAR, which is, I forget what the acronym stands for, but I'm sure I have it in the slide. But it's a book that the AAMC released, and now they have it as a online tool, so you can kind of navigate different characteristics about different schools to help you decide whether you want to apply to that school. But of course, the number one thing, go to that website, ask questions, reach out to any medical students who you may know who attend, and just figure out if you think that school is a good fit for you and if you're a good fit for that school. Okay. Yeah, your favorite part of the AMCAS application is the essay. So I hope that everyone is definitely putting the final touches, or, you know, maybe it's still going through, you know, the workshop, and that's perfectly fine. Definitely spend as much time as possible to create a personal statement that really tells your story, tells your journey, and showcases why you, right, are a great you know, candidate for each respective medical school. And so one big tip, which drove me crazy, is at the bottom. It says that your personal statement is 5,300 characters, 5,300. That includes spaces. Do not let it fool you. It includes spaces, not words. That will just ruin your whole life. If you spend all this time on an essay and the character count does not work and you input it into AMCAS and it cuts you off. The same actually applies for your works and activities section. I don't think I mentioned it, but no, I didn't mention it. My apologies. So with your works and activities section, you can enter 15, and 3 of those are your most meaningful. So when they say the most meaningful, it means it's had the hugest impact on you. It's the most important to you. Those also have a specific character count because you're able to enter a lot more information or a longer description on your most meaningful activity. So similar to your personal statement essay, pay attention to the character count, because the last thing you want to do is work so hard on an essay, copy, paste it into AMCAS, and when you read through it, the last like 10 sentences are cut off and you just sound crazy. Yes, and also with your disadvantage statement, that also has a character count. So character, every individual letter, period, and space, right? So just pay really close attention to that. And also, so Erica will be making a grand appearance next week, and she'll be talking about writing your personal statement, telling your story. So definitely hop on then to listen. Just to get some ideas, feedback, but I'm sure all your personal statements are going to sound so freaking amazing. So I'm really excited. But just in case you just, you know, want some more information, or if you're still working on it, hey, you know, as you're running your own race, you know, it could definitely be a helpful webinar for you to hop onto. So in terms of dates and deadlines, right, the AMCAS application, right, opened earlier this month. And it only opened for you to start, right, uploading information, right, putting in your coursework, putting in your works and activities. However, you cannot submit it yet. You can submit it June 1st, and we highly recommend that you submit your application as early as possible. I remember when I was applying, even before I was applying, everyone kept saying it like all the time, and I started to kind of let it go in one ear and out the other. But I put my life down on it. Definitely apply as early as possible. So if you submit your application in the month of June, that's a great start. So definitely, you know, it's May 17th. We're halfway through. You still have a lot of time to get things together. Make sure that application is ready and tight. And at the end of the day, don't rush it, right? You always want to put your best foot forward, and you definitely don't want to do a rush job on any of these applications, because when it lands on the desk of the admissions committee, they can tell. It's quite evident, right? The typos, the cutoff sections, because you weren't paying attention to the character count, and you don't want to be in that predicament. So at the end of the day, you know, it's your own journey, it's your own, you know, process. So definitely submit when you know you're ready, when your application is tight and ready to go, and can't nobody tell you nothing. But, you know, definitely try to just get it in as soon as possible. So I know for some of you all, you may be taking the MCAT, you know, in May or June or July, or retaking the MCAT. So I would still recommend that you know, get your application in and send it out. For when you go through the application, it gives you an opportunity when it gets to the MCAT section to put any past MCATs you've taken, and also indicate if you are taking a future MCAT or if you're waiting for test results. So you shouldn't let it delay you. And is submitting in July too late? So I never want to say when it's too late, because, you know, it's not over till the fat lady sings. For me, I had a crazy application process, and I actually ended up submitting my applications in August. Don't do that, though. I don't recommend that to anybody ever. I think you should submit as early as possible. However, if you do feel like you submitted a good, solid application, then submit. So luckily for me, I did get into a medical school, even with what I felt like was a late application, but I still felt like it was a good application. And I think that's what kind of brought me across the finish line. So again, apply as early as possible, but when you are ready. So I wouldn't say any date is too late other than like past the deadline, but definitely just, you know, submit as early as possible. Okay, cool. Question section. And so I'll scroll through the chat box and try to answer as many as, well, actually, before questions, I think we have, yeah, just a second before we jump into some of the questions. We have a quick video that we want to share for Premed Star for you all.
Hey Premed Star, we're raffling away a free Kaplan MCAT prep course. Here's how it works. For each student you get to join Premed Star, you get a ticket entered into the raffle. Remember, in order for us to give you credit, you have to log into Premed Star and use one of our invite features. It's really easy, and you can even post Facebook invitations from there. Oh, and here's a tip to help you win. Invite your entire Premed club. We're super excited and can't wait to give one of you this free MCAT prep course. See you online at premedstar.com.
Yes, a free Kaplan course. Definitely take advantage of that. Definitely. Okay, so questions. Should I enter in classes I withdrew from since they show up on my transcript? Yes, that is actually a great question, Egypt. You need to input everything that shows up on your transcript, including classes that you may have withdrawn from, or dropped, if it shows up on your transcript, or even if you may have maybe gotten incomplete and then completed it later. So that's why it's really important to order a hard copy of your transcript so that you're making sure that you're inputting everything exactly as it shows up. And one great thing about the AMCAS application, it does give you a lot of buttons, options, drop-down menus so that you can submit like the most accurate, class type or situation. Okay. Oh, and so also I believe we can send out a link to the video because it's a YouTube video, so we'll make sure we send that out. But yes, it's a free Kaplan course. Tell your friends, tell people in your MAPS chapter, your pre-med chapter, so that you can get entered into a raffle for the free course. How different is the Texas application than the AMCAS application? So I actually didn't do the $10 application personally. I remember I did actually go through it because I'm a weirdo like that. And so in terms of the information that you need to supply, it's pretty similar. $10 is just organized a little bit differently. And I think it's really important that you go to the $10 website and read through their requirements. Because again, these are Texas schools, right? Excluding Baylor. If you want to apply to Baylor University, use AMCAS. And so some of these schools may have different requirements. So it's good that you familiarize yourself with it. But from what I've heard, there are some slight differences, but it asks for a lot of the same information. And then also character counts, essay requirements, letter of rec requirements may be different. Okay. Oh, wait, let me scroll back up so I'm not missing too many questions. Okay. So exam placement. Okay. So for AP or placement exams, if it doesn't give you a letter grade, then I think you should still list it, and I can double check. You may have to put a different option type as other, or you may have to put pass. If that's available for you to put. So pass just means you completed the course, right, and you passed the class. And so definitely we can double check. Also with the AMCAS application, if you go to the AMCAS, or when you go to the AAMC website, they have a 60-page PDF that walks you through detail by detail every section of the AMCAS application. Download it and read it. It might seem like, a long, painstaking process. It's definitely worth it, and little questions like that can
All right. Can you guys hear me?
whatever is meaningful to you as a person. Okay. Do we still have time for more questions, or am I back on? Okay. Okay, I'm back. I don't know at what point I froze up on, um, but I think I was saying, diversify your experiences. Yay, I'm back. Diversify your experiences on the works and activities, and be savvy with it because you only have 15. Placement exam is grade. Oh, that was far back. Wow, I was talking for a long time. Okay, sorry about that. So the following question that I was responding to by myself was the one that talked about they had done if they should list MAPS as 2 different activities because they were an officer in the organization, but they didn't know if they should list it as community service and volunteer work. So my advice to that would be to be savvy. You only have 15 activities that you can list. So if you go over your resume and you have like 25, you may have to figure out how to break it down. But I'm a huge advocate for diversifying the activities that you have. So if you want to focus on the leadership as one activity and just talk about the officer position you held, the roles and responsibilities that entailed, some of the accomplishments that you were able to obtain in that specific officer position, then put that, and then community service volunteer work can be a different works and activities where you highlight the work that you did for your community, how it impacted the underserved. Okay, great. I got you, Veronica. And one thing that one tip that I got that was really great is that if you can quantify what you did, then do that. So if you said we had a food drive and we served 200 residents in my community and we gave out 60 healthy meals, like that's great. So if you're able to quantify the things that you've done or accomplished, that's awesome. Hey, if I'm applying this cycle and I received my letter of rec last year around this time, can I still use them? Ooh, so you should make sure your letter of rec are recent and up to date. If they wrote that letter for you in anticipation of you applying this cycle, then that's okay. However, I think it may I think if it has an old date, it may look kind of weird. So if you can ask that letter writer to literally just update the date or the timestamp on it, I think that'll be great. But if they already wrote you a really great letter that you want to use, just have them update the timestamp on it and submit it for you. How do we send our transcript into AMCAS? So when you enter in the institutions that you have attended, it'll generate a transcript request form. So depending on the institution, some schools you may have to go down in person to the office of the registrar and have that transcript request form physically with you to get your transcript sent to AMCAS directly from the office. You may have to do that. Some schools have a portal online that you could just go online and enter in the information and send it off to and have your school send it off directly to AMCAS. Again, when you request the transcript request form, really pay attention because it has a specific ID number for each institution that AMCAS is going to use to match to your application. So pay attention to little details like that. And we'll take, let's say, like 2 more questions. So if I can see. Do we need a letter of rec from at least one of the experiences for most meaningful essays? Oh, Jamal, hey, how you doing? That's a good question. I was told yes. So you should try and get a letter of rec from one of those most meaningful experiences. But again, they may vary, right? If you did something different, I don't know what to use as an example, but yes. So my answer in short is yes, but again, make sure they can speak to characteristics, qualities that you have that speak to you being a really great medical student. So let's say you put yoga, yoga is a meaningful activity that you participate in and you put it as a most meaningful experience, and you go to like your yoga instructor and they write you a letter that talks about you but doesn't really connect it to medical school, then it may not be the best choice. But again, if you can get to who's going to speak to you and your experiences and your qualities, then yes. Okay, are there any other questions? You're welcome. Okay, all right.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much.
Y'all are welcome.
All right, awesome. Hi, y'all. My name is Megan McLeod. Sorry for the technical difficulties a little bit earlier, but thanks for bearing with us. And thank you, Omo, for doing such an awesome job of just jumping right in. Really quickly, before we end this webinar, I wanted to just say a little bit about Premed Star. Thank you so much for joining us on this webinar. Premed Star, as some of you guys might know, your website is a great community of pre-med medical students that gives you the opportunity to network with each other and also with medical schools. So I wanted to give a quick shout out to Aisha for being our student of the week, and also to Madeline for her awesome blog about the MCAT that she just put up. It was really great. I liked it a lot. And some info for y'all as well. This video, I know several people had asked, we recorded this webinar, so it will be posted on our YouTube channel in about 3 days, and it will also be posted on the activity feed on the site. So make sure you look out for that, and also subscribe to the YouTube channel. And next week, either on Tuesday or Wednesday, if you've been on the site, you've seen our MChat feature, which is great. It's an awesome way to keep up with studying different topics. And so one of the best teachers that Kaplan has is actually going to be on the site next Tuesday or Wednesday sometime. Look out for the exact time on the site. But they are going to be participating in the MChat and are so excited to help out. Yes, Auburn is our MChat queen in here as well. So definitely be on the lookout for that, and make sure you guys. Thank you again to Omo for helping us figure out how to put everything into AMCAS. I definitely appreciated it. I'm working on that now as well. And thank you all for joining us. We hope to see you next week at the Personal Statement Workshop.